Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm really delighted to see so many of you attend this session. We're going to be focusing on the impact of AI on the workforce. So my name is Carol Stubbings. I am the Global Markets Leader for PwC. And I am delighted to be joined by an amazing group of senior female leaders. So to my left is Tanuja Pilashrami. Tanuj is the Global Head of Strategy and Talent for Standard Chartered Bank and a very good friend of mine. We've worked together for a very long time. We're also joined by Karen Gouvet. I practiced it. Karen G. Apparently everybody calls her Karen Gouveia. And Karen is the People and Culture Services Vice President of Americas for BP. And then Caroline Elbaz, who is the HR Director for Oracle. And it's actually her birthday today, so please wish Caroline happy birthday. We are so pleased that she's decided to spend her birthday with us today. So listen, before we go into questions, some of you will have seen that we launched the AI jobs barometer at VivaTech this week. And there's a QR code up there if you want to download it. It's a really worthwhile read. I know, Tanuj, you spent last night reading it, which is great. And essentially, I just wanted to pick up a couple of points from that barometer. So over the last couple of months, we basically spent a lot of time looking at the impact of AI on jobs over the last 5 years. And we looked at over 500 million job postings in 15 different countries. There's a lot of noise out there about the scariness of AI and the impact it's going to have, and people are going to lose their jobs. But the reality is this survey says something quite different. It talks about the optimism that AI can have for organizations that need to reinvent and transform themselves. It talks about really low productivity growth, particularly in OECD countries, and the lack of skills and availability. So from an AI perspective, we do believe that it has the opportunity, with the right focus, to really enhance productivity, to really drive new value for organizations to transform and reinvent themselves for the future, looking at new ways to source talent, but also new ways to drive revenue and new ways to interact with customers. So it's a good news story. What we're also seeing is that organizations that have already adopted and adapted AI into their businesses are seeing a 5 times productivity gain compared to those organizations that aren't. But we also know that the jobs that AI will create are very different to the jobs that we will lose. And there is a massive skills gap between what we need and what we have today. So I'm going to ask my first question to Tanuj. So Tanuj, you and I spent a lot of time talking about a skills-first approach. And I know, Tanuj, you've got a book coming out specifically on that topic at the end of this year. And I know I will definitely read it. But talk to us about the importance of thinking about a skills-first approach.
Thank you. First, great to be here. I did read the report last night. I had a sneak peek because Karen and I did a panel yesterday. So I had a sneak peek of the high-level findings. Not only did I read the report, I actually sent key insights from the report to our board. And that's a plug to any of you who are thinking about how do you have the conversations with your leadership team on the power of human-AI collaboration to really make the most of this technological change that's happening. Please do read the report because it provides incredible data, which is very powerful for the cynics, really. So coming to the topic of skills, one of the things that's become very clear to me over the last couple of months and these last 2 days here is that the potential of AI, and especially Gen AI, is massive. The gap between potential and reality is adoption, right? So everyone knows that the potential exists. Why is it that we are not seeing more and more use cases around productivity and innovation impact? Because the adoption gap is massive. And the adoption gap is as much a cultural gap, so what needs to happen in companies to culturally change, but also a skills gap. And the 2 or 3 points I will make, the first thing is what AI is doing, especially what Gen AI is doing, is democratizing access to technology to everyone. So no more is technology the prerogative of data scientists and the deep technocrats in the company. It's people like you and me who can augment our productivity and drive greater innovation using AI. What that means is that companies need to invest in sustained skill building, not just in technical areas, but also in human skills. And again, that's a point that's come up quite a bit in the last 2 days. The shrinking half-life of technical skills, thanks to AI and Gen AI, what technical skills need to be augmented by are human-centric skills. And it's those human-centric skills, creativity, managing change, dealing ambiguity, curiosity. What are the questions? How do you pose the questions to AI? How do you design the code? The idea around inclusion. How do you think about inclusion at the time that you're designing sort of solution? And it's all those human skills that need to be trained if we are going to be making the most of the potential of this technology.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because we've had a number of debates over the last year where people call it soft skills, and we both have quite an allergic reaction to that word because there is nothing soft about the human skills of curiosity, adaptability, resilience. So yeah, we're changing that word from soft to human-centered. So Caroline, let me turn to you. So, you focus very much and we were talking earlier about your approach to HR and your approach to the people in your organization. How do you feel and what do you believe is going to change in the short, medium and long term?
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here too. I would like to take a step back before answering your question, because I think we had two main advanced technology have changed fundamentally the course of history. I'm talking about first the printing world with books, and also the digital world with internet. And I believe that this technology will have this technology a very drastic geopolitical first, and it's very important to include this point, culturally and human impact. And I really believe that this technology, Gen AI, is the same. It's going to be not an evolution, not a revolution, but a change of chapter. And obviously, our jobs, techniques, and competencies will be very different. But it's not a gap, it's a chasm, a big chasm. We maybe need to forget about jobs. So the notion of job will not exist anymore, never. We maybe think about new terms about roles, or like you say don't say soft skills. Yeah, I believe that roles and no more jobs. For that, we need to think not in terms of years, we need to think in terms of generations. For our generation, we need to reinvent how to work. It's not a question of competency, reinvent how to work. For next generation, different topics. They will need to reinvent to learn, how to learn. So if I go back to our generation, I think the impact on job, we can see how today a developer, for instance, in Oracle, don't do the same job as before. He used the intelligence to do it as a tool. Today is out of control sometimes. A PA, maybe she doesn't care about it today. In 2 years, she will do maybe this business trip differently. So for us, like you said, it's a little bit of repetition. It's like to be what I call a GNA native, like we have been GNA internet native, to be able to deal with it in our daily work. But what is complicated is to think about a different way to work, like we said. For instance, when I was young, so a long time ago, you see it's my birthday, but I was a young HR. I remember it's something very simple. I have a lot of business case, litigation cases. And I remember to go to the library, trying to find all this jurisprudence. It was a nightmare because it's big, heavy book. It took me 2 weeks, printed it. After you have to do a summary, and after to find a solution. Today, I asked my database, I got all the jurisprudence in 1 minute. Oh, I still have the executive summary to do, but tomorrow nothing to do. Just ask it, I got it, I have the summary and the strategy. So I don't have anything to do. No, I have to find something else because we need to take this value of time to do something else. When I'm talking about next generation, not the same. They are swimming with that and they don't have any issue. But they will have to be able to keep their traditional skills. And I have an example. I was with my father a long time ago. We were lost in the middle of nowhere. And he said, where we go? He said, don't worry. He stopped. He opened his glove compartment. He took out a map and we reached out the destination. Today we share a young, very young, new generation son. He is a new driver. And he said, well, Mama, I would like to go there. I said, let's go. Can I have Waze? It's your college, you know where it is. No. I cannot do it without Waze. So it means that for this generation, you have to be able to use and work without GNA sometime, or if you want to challenge information provide. How can you provide information without to know how to the knowledge and especially practice and experience? Because today we know how to do a strategy. The intelligence provides you another strategy. It's maybe better than yours. But how you can say it's good or not good if you never did it? So imagine for this generation, be able to understand, manage something they don't practice. And one more point, I think the more complex, and I give another example with internet. Internet, and it makes me very old. I was working for Minitel. French people, I'm sure you know what is Minitel. And they say, with internet, wow, we will not have any more job because in 1 minute we get the information. Yes, it's true. But the problem is that we have a quantity of information that it's amazing. And you have to manage this complexity. And you still have a lot of work. And it's more complicated. And I think for this new generation, there will be a lot of information very fast, with a result very, very fast. And maybe it's a thinking. Today we are expert on topics, maybe an expert on a region. Tomorrow, maybe they will have to be expert on a country. So they will have to manage to be expert of expertise. So it's a big challenge for us, but not the same for next generation, and it will be more complicated for them than for us.
Thank you. Thank you for those insights. Karen, so you work at BP, and clearly there's been a lot of change there, and the organization is going through a fundamental transformation. How do you believe, or what are you currently doing within BP from an AI perspective to really help be aligned with the business strategy and ensure that you have the right people to really drive that transformation successfully forward?
Sure. Thanks for having me here. Came a long way to be here. So definitely AI is critical. And for BP, what has been happening with us for the past 2-3 years is that we have been moving from an international oil company to an integrated energy company. So AI becomes fundamental. And we have been already implementing AI in small instances like textile, so we can have better job description, better sourcing mechanism, communications, so we can in fact attract talent, especially as we are still coded as an oil company, right? So we are not the cool trend market company out there. So to attract them, we have implemented what is called Grow at BP. So it's an integrated learning platform. It's based on the job that you do today, but also on the growth that you want to have, on the future that you plan for you. it provides you with a learning path so you can grow yourself, you can learn. So we are already creating this instance that you grow yourself. You have to get what is out there for you. And last, we put Scout. Scout is a people care, as we call it, a people care chatbot, where employees can communicate, get tier 0 support, and it only moves through the chain to tier 1, tier 2 as those things become more exceptional, more individual basis, but it takes a lot of the information and it helps us source the information and see how better we can put knowledge out there. But this is just the beginning, right? We already have 3 big streams of work that we are doing, and I think the critical one, workforce planning, and how we do the skills development, because basically on the last 2 years, we have grown inorganically quite a bit. So our workforce probably grew 35% inorganically. And now we are talking about retail, what is not very common for oil companies to deal with retail employees, and hydrogen. So we are now talking about plants that can be entirely operated by 2-3 people. So the level of risk, the level of skills that you need there are very different than a person in a platform that is a business known for 20, 30, 40 years, right? So the technology is very different. And we need AI. Why we need AI? Because the market has new types of professionals that we don't even know we need. So being able to access the barometer and see, hey, this skill, I never thought about it. I never thought that I need a person to tell me how I convert trash in energy more effectively so I can source an airplane. Who would think about it, right? And another thing is resource planning, because what we want to be diligent is that we can hire, we can adapt our workforce, but we can also train the workforce that we already have there, right? So we need to make sure that it's not only about hiring, it's about moving people. And to your point, moving people around doesn't matter in which functions they are today. So they are not held in their job descriptions as if they're boxes. So we can move people. Me being an example, I'm an engineer that work in HR today, start dealing with artificial intelligence 25 years ago, and here I am in Gen AI in HR. So those kinds of moves across the company for people that are ready, but not only that, growing people that are not ready today, but they can be ready for tomorrow. Especially, as I said, the business is growing at a rapid pace. So if we don't have AI with us, and one thing that I keep telling the team as we do transformation globally is that AI wouldn't take jobs. AI would change jobs. AI would make sure that the professionals of today are different professionals of tomorrow. You said that I have an 11-year-old, right? So in my time, I used encyclopedias, went to libraries, would search it. But today, and even the future generation, would have even more challenge, because for me was one encyclopedia that gave me one source of information. Today, when Sophia searches for something on the internet as she wants to grow her skills, she sees an avalanche of information. So the possibility of having the emotional intelligence, the adaptable skills, and the intellectual skills too, but the 3 of them, so she can go through the avalanche and filter what is actually relevant, and especially in HR, what is ethical, and what is risk-based, adaptable to a company that is growing energy. For me, that becomes fundamental. So how you move from one source of information to an avalanche and still can carve out of it what is critical for the job.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's really interesting. You know, there's a huge amount of focus and energy. A lot of CEOs are talking about we've got to get Gen AI to all of our workforce. You know, we've seen all the productivity stats. We think it's going to be amazing. And, you know, we have a lot of caution kind of built into that, right? Because 1, it's very expensive. 2, it's very carbon intensive. And 3, actually, if you don't redeploy the productivity gain into more value-added activities, then you never get that benefit back into the business. So you create a huge cost without really the benefit coming to the bottom line. And I think what's really interesting as well is, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, Tanuj, is being really clear and really mindful around where you will use AI in your organization. And it's that adoption and that mindset of the organization that needs to change. And not just at the worker level. And we do a hopes and fears survey every year where we surveyed 55,000 workers around the world. Actually, the majority of those workers know that AI is going to change their job to roles in some way, shape or form. And they want to do that, right? They want to embrace it. They want to work alongside it. But actually, we also need the leaders to change, and the type of leaders that we need to help drive us through this next decade, as you talk about. You know, when we've got a lot of organizations saying, how can I use AI to be better at what we do today? They're asking the wrong question. Because of course you can do that, but how can you use AI to do things very differently, to create new revenue pools, to touch your customers in very, very different ways? But Tanuja, it would be good to kind of get your thinking around how you manage your board and your leaders that I know you work very closely with, as well as kind of getting the workforce ready for what's to come.
I mean, look, just a couple of things for everyone today to reflect on. The whole focus of the book, which I have coming out in fall, basically says the concept of jobs is not going to exist. And it's a very simple question I ask people who work in big companies. So I very often ask CEOs in big companies, how much coding skills do you have in your company? And people will say, we have got 5,000 engineers, 10,000 engineers, in our case, 17,000 engineers. Well, that's not the right answer. You're just assuming that the people who have coding skills are the engineers. And actually, even mature businesses have absolutely no inventory, you know. The fact that an HR professional has got coding skills is not on the skills heat map of most businesses today, and that's a reality. So this idea of how do you have workflow to skills versus workflow to jobs is a very important deconstruction of operating systems in companies that our generation is going to see through. That's the most exciting thing. I'm not a technologist. I want to be born a technologist. But what fascinates me is how operating systems are going to have to deconstruct, and job as the currency of work will need to go away very quickly. Because if you don't do that, it's the risk that you have said. So people say, I understand the potential of AI. So what are you doing? Oh, we've got X thousand Copilot licenses. Fantastic. 6 months on, what is the impact you have of productivity savings? Well, we have none. Well, the reality is you have not fundamentally challenged the operating system or how work gets done and been purposeful and intentional about the role technology, within that AI, and within that Gen AI plays in that deconstruction of work. And, you know, and getting Copilot licenses and getting the money to do that is not the most challenging or the exciting thing. The exciting thing is how do you fundamentally restructure work? And I think that's something, my fear is, if I'm going to be honest, not enough companies are spending enough time thinking about. I'll just give you a very practical example. 4 years ago, we deconstructed the way talent flows in the company. We've got a talent marketplace. Everyone who has a profile puts in their skills. Somebody who's looking at an exciting piece of work to get done, posts that work on the platform and says, these are the skills that we need. And we crowdsource skills across the company to get work done. And my favorite example is that our business in India decided to become the first deaf-friendly bank. So we are the first deaf-friendly bank in India. They put up a business case, didn't get the funding, no money in the corporate plan, no FTE. That entire project was crowdsourced on our talent marketplace. A UX engineer in New York, a D&I expert in London, a communications geek in Singapore, all gave their skills in service of a very purposeful piece of work. And that's the power when you deconstruct a piece of work around skills, and that's when it really unlocks productivity. So to me, if there is one thing that I can leave everyone with to think about, is how do we get rid of jobs and become a much more skill-based organization?
Thank you. I can't believe that we are kind of 5 minutes away from the end and we're going to open up for questions. So maybe we'll do that first, and then we'll have a few kind of words of what you think people really want to take away from this session and what people need to start thinking about doing differently. So I'm going to open it up for the audience first. Who's got a question?
Hi there, thank you for the talk. I've got 2 questions, if that's okay. So the first one is, what are you as leaders going to stop doing, start doing, and have to build differently to make sure you're nurturing talent pipelines for these emerging technologies and emerging skills? And then two, we know that 70% of jobs that will be affected through AI are disproportionately towards women. So what advice, what are you doing in your organization to make sure that women are not left out when it comes to this new technology?
Thank you.
Can I have a very quick go at it and then I pass on? The first thing is, what am I going to stop doing is indulging in hobby projects and pet projects and hobby projects. So what I will start doing is ruthless prioritization, right? Everyone's getting very excited about the technology. You know, I'm all for experimentation, but unless you really ruthlessly prioritize user cases, what you want to go after, you're going to miss out on the opportunity. The second one I'll pick up is the piece on gender, which I feel very passionately about. We did a strategic workforce plan a few years ago, and we looked at skills that will go away and skills that will be needed, overplayed it with jobs, and then overlaid it with gender. And we realized that the percentage of women in our workforce will go down by 5% over the next 3 years if we don't take decisive action now. And that's because there are even fewer women in AI than they are in STEM. So there are even fewer women in AI and Gen AI. So what we are doing is very purposeful reskilling efforts to leverage Gen AI to get more women in future-focused job areas. That's cybersecurity, you know, technology, data science. But companies will have to be very intentional about the reskilling efforts, because my fear is that the gap between educational institutions and employability, the gap between education and employability is becoming wider and wider. So the businesses will have to play a role.
Thanks.
In my opinion, I think the most important thing with the management and with employees is to stay quiet, to be relaxed on it and make people comfortable, because I am not scared, and we need to stop to be scared. We need to be positive, because our job is to give a vision. So I believe that we will need more collective, human, intelligence and women. And if you trust in that, you just have to do it and make them thinking like you. So I think the first thing we need to do is to do it and make what we want as women, because we need to write the story instead of wait. So all my manager women, I ask them to be leader, to be manager. And our tool, for instance, we have a tool called performance skills, no, dynamic skills, and for the appraisal, for instance, appraisal save you so many times, give you the good goals, real example, decline it with a smart objective. After you can prioritize, you can challenge it, you don't spend time, you don't waste time, people go it comfortable. So you have almost maybe 20% of your time safe. You can just do management and leadership. Involve yourself and really push people to go where you want to go.
Thank you for the question. There was another question at the back.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I'm really glad that the HR colleagues are taking into consideration the AI integration into the workforce. My question will double down the diversity, equity and inclusion topic, if you will. So how would you see, as HR professionals, as leaders in the people and culture management, the impact of Gen AI on inclusion of neurodiversity and in particular Generation Z into the workforce success and talent pipelines? Because right now we know that Gen Z are the least paid, the least loyal, and the most frustrated part of the workforce currently. Thank you.
So I can have a quick go at that one, if that's okay. Look, I think the democratization of AI and the ability for everybody to kind of consume it quite easily will then, my view is that generative AI particularly will allow humans to be more human, and they work alongside the technology. And what it will give us is more insight and more data and more information for a much broader, bigger range of demographics, which then will enable us to be very specific and very tailored around how we curate that individual learning point for individuals. So making sure that we're picking up on all of those diverse traits, whether it's gender, ethnicity, neurodiversity, but being able to actually understand who you have in the organization and be much more personal to that group of individuals or that individual specifically, I think will be really important. And I also believe that actually the whole way that we have to learn, have to unlearn, and have to relearn, we have to fundamentally transform the way we recruit, the way we train, the way we promote, because the skills that are going to be more important in the future are not necessarily the skills we value today. And so for me, I am hopeful it will create a much more equitable environment. And I think to your point as well, when you think about females in the workforce, I mean, we are at PwC, we're doing a lot of work where we sponsor females into STEM education. So we pay for their education and then give them a job. Now, that's only one little thing that we do, but actually a lot of the traits, the human traits we're talking about, females have those in abundance, right? So I think if you can make the tech easy and really enhance the human skills, I think it could be a bright future for females.
Can I be very controversial? And I will say this. I've been involved in loads of charities over the years where women are being trained into coding skills. We've made minimal progress, minimal. And I've now reached the conclusion that that's all a waste of effort. If you really believe that the true value of the transformation is human-AI collaboration, then what human needs, design thinking, human-centered design thinking, system thinking, curiosity, the questions you ask, ability to solve problems differently, and natural skills that women have. So I'm with Carol. If technology deployed well, and that's a massive if, and we can have a separate conversation on what needs to happen to have technology deployed well. If it's deployed well, it can drive greater equity, because let's be blunt, what we have done in the last 10 years hasn't yielded the kind of results that we expected to see across most businesses.
Great. Look, we're out of time, I'm afraid. But listen, thank you so much for listening to us. I want to say an enormous thank you to my amazing panel of very senior female leaders. And we are around for a little bit for questions, but thank you very much. Oh, and we have some birthday cake.